Hi everyone at home. So now we're going to get into talking about the 7 chakras. So this is a wonderful book that I use. It's called Chakras for Beginners, and it's by David Pond. I highly recommend it. Definitely you should order it and get a copy for yourself. But I'm literally going to read right from the book. It's a wonderful book, and it really explains the chakras in a very simple way. But there's a lot of profound wisdom, so definitely take a lot of notes. There's a lot of great quotes that you want to make sure that you write down. Okay, so let's get started. So chakras, first of all, the pronunciation is chakra, C-H, chakra. A lot of people pronounce it chakra. I did for many years until my friend Gita corrected me and said, no, it's chakra, like chocolate. And I was like, oh, I like chocolate. So chocolate, chakras. All right, so chakras is the pronunciation. So the chakras are storehouses and transmitters of the universal energy. And each chakra represents distinct frequencies within the universal. The chakras interact with the electromagnetic energy field and transform this energy that sustains our lives. Okay, so we're talking about energy here. We're not talking about something physical. We're talking about something on an energetic level that really fuels our bodies, that really fuels the planet, that really runs, it's in everything when you start to understand energy on that level. But we're going to talk about it with relation to our bodies, okay? Next thing is that the chakras are spinning vortexes of subtle energy located along the spine from the base to the crown. So what is a vortex? You may have heard of a vortex. There's vortexes all over the US and all over the world. One in particular is in Sedona, Arizona. And this vortex, I actually experienced it. It was pretty amazing. I was there just doing a cross-country drive, and myself and Janisha decided, well, let's go find the vortex. And we looked online, and we can hire somebody for $150 per person to show us where the vortex is, or we were like, you know what, screw this, we'll find it ourselves. So Janisha, being very intuitive, we went climbing up these beautiful red rocks, the amazing, spectacular view. But then when we came to this particular area, we could feel this vibration coming off the earth. It was pretty amazing, and it felt like this thickness where we waved our hands and we could barely move it. And when we stepped in it, you could feel like this heat radiating. When we stepped a few feet back and waved our hand, couldn't feel anything. When you step back into it, you could feel it, because that's this energy that's kind of just coming out from the earth. That's a vortex. We have those within our bodies. So that's what we're going to be talking about with relation to the 7 chakras. So here's a nice representation for you to think about, a little visual. He says, imagine the 7 chakras as 7 floors of a building. When you are on the bottom floor and looking out the window, the view is significantly different from the view through each of the other floors. Okay, so if you're outside this building, wherever building you're at, and you look outside and you're on the first floor, you can only see but a limited view. Every time you go up a floor, upper level, you can see more. Okay, so that's a nice representation, visual images for you with the chakras. With each successive elevation, one's view becomes successively more expansive. The ideal is to have a clean window at each of the floors so that the view can be clearest. Okay, so having this understanding and this wisdom of the chakras as we discovered, you're going to have a better view of your life, of yourself, of your body, of other people. It's really going to help you to understand things a lot much clearer. From each successive floor, your perception expands as you become aware of a larger reality that includes your previous floor of perception and also includes a vista beyond your previous perceptual capacity. Okay, so the higher you go up, the more you're going to understand, the more this is going to make sense overall in your life. So here's a nice quote. Any blocks or restrictions to either reception or expression of this life energy will result in a malfunction of the organism as a whole, and will be expressed as disease, discomfort, lack of energy, fear, or an emotional imbalance. Okay? So you're going to make sure that your chakras aren't blocked, your chakras aren't closed, because if there is an imbalance, it could result in sicknesses, disease, just different energetic things that you may feel, discomfort, irritable, things like that in your life. Okay, so the first level to understanding the chakras is to see them operating in your life as the flow of energy. The same life force that flows through all the trees, plants, animals, clouds, rivers, and mountains flows through you. It does so through the system of the chakras in an organized, perceptible manner that can be observed and experienced. But first, one must develop the perspective of the witness. So what do you mean by witness? So a lot of times when we're in meditation, we always talk to you about focusing on the breath, right? You want to try to witness the breath, to be connected to the breath, and also to think about your thoughts and think about the thought behind the thought. For example, if you're thinking about something negative or if you're experiencing something, like why are you going down that thought, right? What's the thought behind the thought? What's influencing you? So then the way to achieve that is by being the witness. The simplest way is to start your practice of meditation by focusing on the breath. Right? Notice what's breathing, who's breathing, how are you breathing. Just be so present to the breath, and then from there you're starting to enter into this mindset and understanding of being the witness or being the observer. The chakras are often associated with the endocrine gland system. Their placement in the body corresponds with the location of the many of these ductless glands, and the meaning of each individual chakra is closely connected to the function of the corresponding gland. It would be a mistake, however, to consider this connection in any way physical. Although located along the spine and positioned just in front of it, the chakras are decidedly not physical. Okay, this isn't a physical thing. So the spine, as we talked about in your pranayama video, and then talking about the nadis, the central column is the Sushumna nadi. So we start from the base of the spine going up to the crown of the head. Energetically, that's where the 7 chakras are, right in front of the spine along that Sushumna nadi. Okay, so that's what we mean by this is energy, this isn't anything physical. Okay, so moving on. So one thing that's important to understand is we want to achieve balance. So just as we talked about on the orientation video, we discussed that the goal of this teacher training is for you to experience balance in your life, okay, in all areas of your life, ideally. So also with working with the chakras, you want to experience balance, okay? So in the beginning, when you're discovering the chakras, you might find a little bit of, you discover where you're out of balance, and we use the metaphor of like being in a tree pose. So he shows a little picture of a tree pose right here. Okay, so if you're in tree pose in the beginning, or even in inversion when you become more advanced, it's a little bit tricky in the beginning. You're falling, you're wobbling, you're all over the place. But then one day you just get it, and you're totally able to be centered, to be still without moving, and you can hold the pose for a longer period of time. That's the same thing that we want to discover with the chakras. In the beginning, it's a little bit bumpy, it's a little bit wobbly, you're not really sure. But then next thing you know, you're able to go into it, and you're nice and centered. Okay. All right. So there's a great quote here. He says, "Balance is the way, conflict is the illusion." Balance is the way, conflict is the illusion. Okay, and it's really about aligning yourself, alignment. We also talked about on day 1 video, alignment, right? The goal of the teacher training is also for you to experience heat, healing, empowering, alignment, and transformation. So alignment is the key. The more you become aligned, then everything will start to flow nice and smooth in your life. Okay, all right. So that's pretty much a little bit of a setup for it. Another part of this important is for you to experience this idea of surrender, right? Surrendering to the process, surrendering to this journey of you discovering your chakras, and for you to discover how to get in balance. Okay, so as we go through this particular lesson, there's going to be a little test about this, and these are the things that you want to listen out for. Where is the chakra located? Right, where specifically? There's 7 of them. So where is the chakra located? What's the color of that particular chakra? What's the color? What's the purpose of that chakra? The purpose, each one has a purpose, a function. How do you know when it's in balance? Like, what do you experience in your life when it's in balance? How do you know when it's out of balance? And then how do you get back into balance when you're out of balance? Okay, those are the things you want to listen out for, and we'll point them out to you as we go along, but keep those in mind. Okay, so let's get started. And also the seed sound, my apologies, the seed sound, the sound, like we talked about the bija mantra, and we'll do the bija mantra at the end of this discussion. Each chakra has a sound associated with it, like a mantra. Okay, all right, so here we are. So the first chakra is located at the base of the spine, the base of the spine. The purpose of this particular chakra is the urge for survival. Okay, so location is the base of the spine. The purpose is the urge for survival. The color is red. And we say that the sound of this is Lam, L-A-M, Lam. That's the mantra for this chakra. Okay, so let's go into the lessons now. So the primary drive associated with this chakra is survival. It is the most instinctive of all the chakras. Food, clothing, shelter, and procreation are the necessities to which it responds. Sex for procreation and perpetuation of the species is also a drive for this chakra. In a word, survival is the basic urge. Okay, this is all about survival. So when you think of someone, for example, right, tragedy strikes a particular country, a town, a neighborhood, and people are now left without a home. They don't really care what the box office gross of the last film opened. They don't really care what's going on with anything in entertainment world or whatever. They're mainly focused on, oh my God, where am I going to live? How am I going to sleep? Where am I going to eat? How am I going to provide for my family? Right? Just the basic human needs. That's what this chakra really speaks to. Or homeless people, look at homeless people. Same thing. They don't really have any other cares other than where am I going to sleep, where am I going to eat, just the basic fundamental needs. That's what this chakra really speaks to in terms of the purpose. This chakra is the bottom floor. This is where individuation process starts, where the individuation process begins. Okay, a sign of an imbalance for this is you don't trust people. You don't trust anyone. You feel like you have to provide and do for yourself because no one's going to provide or take care of you, right? Your guard is up, so to speak, okay? This chakra also deals with protection, protecting oneself and preservation. So some other signs of imbalances are insecurity. You feel that there's not enough resources to provide adequate food, clothing, shelter, and the needs of this chakra will become so consuming that you will find it very difficult to focus on anything else, okay? So if you don't have a place to live, you don't have any food, you don't have any money, you don't have, again, that's really gonna be on your mind and your consciousness of your mind, okay? So that's a few signs of imbalances. Also, if in balance, a fear of insufficiency has clouded your perceptions, sending you into an insecurity cycle, feeling insecure and approaching life as a victim, okay? So, victim versus master is another one of the lessons that we teach in this teacher training. We want you to approach your life as a master, because if you're on the victim column, then you're going to fall into fears, you're going to fall into a mindset of scarcity, you're going to fall into a mindset of blame, you're going to fall into a mindset of weakness, or being a taker, as far as having this taker energy. That's along the victim thinking. We want to step into the path of master or mastery. Okay, so again, an imbalance would be this form of a view of scarcity, of limitation, of insufficiency. Things are running out, so to speak. Okay, whether it be food, resources, time, money, we get this sense that things are running out. All right, moving on into how do you balance this chakra. So this chakra is very interesting because since it's dealing with things running out, which ultimately would lead to death, then one of the ways to face and balance this chakra is to face death, so to speak, but in, of course, a safe way. So one of the things that they suggest is very competitive physical sports. So for example, boxing or football, or maybe any type of martial arts, any type of rugged, aggressive sports. Some things that I've actually done in the past that he mentions here is skydiving. There's nothing more terrifying than jumping out of a perfectly fine plane. It's the scariest thing, but it's the most exhilarating thing that I've ever done. I've done it several times. I love it, and it's just amazing. So you're facing death, ultimately, and then because you're facing death, and when you touch the ground and you realize, okay, I didn't die, you're filled with life. It's amazing. So that's what the purpose of this chakra is in terms of balancing it. As you're facing it, you're tapping into your life, right? Feeling alive. Other ways that are very popular are thrill-seeking adventures, such as amusement parks, roller coasters. Some people like to go bungee jumping, race car driving, things like that. Things where you're in a safe environment, but you're kind of facing death in a safe way. And in doing so, you get filled with life, okay? So that's the first chakra. All right, let's go to the second one. So the second chakra is the pursuit of pleasure. That's the goal, the purpose, is the pursuit of pleasure. This chakra is located by the pelvis area, The color is orange, and the sound is vam, V-A-M, vam. The second chakra, perspective, is animated by magnetism. What attracts you and what are you repelled by? This arousal of energy most often is dominated by sexuality, but certainly is not limited to it. So when you think of magnetism, when you think of what are you drawn to, what are you attracted to, this is also dealing in the second chakra. But also, when you get into really having a powerful chakra, when you get into pretty much alignment with everything, you start to manifest things, right? You start to think of things, and next thing you know, an opportunity presents itself. So this idea of magnetism, calling it into your life, we've all heard of course, the law of attraction by now, but this is also coming from second chakra, this form of magnetism, okay? So the second chakra grasps for whatever brings pleasure, and these experiences habituate very easily. sex, alcohol, tobacco, chocolate, the sensation of all drugs, all are second chakra and are all very habit forming. So this is the danger with this chakra, is that if it's out of balance, then you might become addicted. You might become obsessed with these particular things as they mentioned here. So food for many people is one, alcohol maybe another one, sex maybe another one. So you start to become consumed by it. Okay, so this is also a sign of an imbalance where you have an addiction. Okay, so a good friend of mine, Catherine, told me this wonderful story about when she started getting into the world of meditation and yoga and these higher levels of consciousness. She went to India, and she was in India. This is very soon after she kind of just left it all behind, so to speak, and moved to India to go study in an ashram with her guru. So she's at the ashram, and she started to crave chocolate. And she was obsessed with this idea of chocolate. But of course, at the ashram, there wasn't the chocolate that she wanted. So a friend of hers was coming from the States to join her, so she told her friend, bring me a lot of chocolate. So her friend came with all this chocolate, and what my friend did was she ate all the chocolate in one sitting. Now some people may think, why would she do that? That's crazy. But she knew herself, and she knew that had she eaten a little bit now, then she goes and she's meditating, and she'll be thinking, oh, I can't wait to get back to my room to have more chocolate. And then she would go back, and she would make that last, and then it would keep messing with her mind, so to speak. Okay, so what she did was she just ate it all in one sitting, and she was good. She was like, okay, I don't need any more chocolate. That's what we're talking about here, right? Being so present in the moment, you experience it, and then you let it go. So here's a great quote that feeds into this, what we just discussed. Quitting any indulgence rarely works. Quitting any indulgence rarely works. What is pushed down grows stronger. Taking part in the indulgence while simultaneously staying aware is the antidote. Okay? So experiencing it, but being fully present, that you don't lose consciousness, that you don't lose awareness, but being fully in it without losing that is really much. So here's another quote. We tend to lose awareness during the pursuit of pleasure. The trick is to stay fully conscious and mindful during the experience. Okay, so being present. So if you're going to have a glass of wine or whatever it is for you, then it's up to you if you choose to indulge in those activities. But you don't drink the whole bottle and black out and then forget what happened the next day, right? So have a little bit, you're happy, you're good, you're fine. A little buzz, again, it's up to you. But don't lose consciousness. Don't lose awareness of what you're doing. Be so fully present that you can know when to draw the line and when to say, okay, enough is enough. Okay, whether it be alcohol, whether it be food. All right, so moving on. So another form of imbalance here for this particular chakra, if imbalanced, the search for pleasure is not completed by a sense of fulfillment and the chase is on. Okay, so you start to experience what we call this idea of having something being insatiable. No matter how much you get of it, it's not enough. So if you think of an extreme example, someone who's addicted to alcohol, someone who's addicted to drugs, no matter how much, they're always chasing the next high. We've heard this pretty often, okay? So the major clue for noticing an imbalance in the second chakra is a desire to lose yourself in sex, drugs, alcohol, or food, or any stimulating sensations, okay? You want to lose yourself. So that's why it's important to practice meditation. Because think about it, when we meditate, what do? We start to shut down the senses one by one. And we tell you, okay, sit up tall, close the eyes. That sense is gone. Usually, we're not eating anything, so the sense of taste is gone. Usually, there's no scent of smell, so that scent is gone. Maybe there's music, most of the time not. When you get into higher levels of meditation, you don't need any music, so that sense is gone. And then lastly, sometimes when I'm meditating, I don't feel my hands anymore. And it feels like my hands are doing this because I can't feel my fingers. And then when I open my eyes, when I finish, my fingers are still together, but I don't feel my arm. So it's like your five senses start to disappear. So that's also with relation to this chakra. If you start to feel consumed and you get obsessed with these extra external objects, then your senses become a little bit wonky, so to speak. Okay, so you start to get driven by a fear of loss, and a sense of fulfillment becomes impossible. Again, this idea of insatiable, right? Never getting enough, always wanting more and more and more and more and more. You also have jealousy, right? Because then you start to see, well, other people have what I want. How come I don't have what I want? So you start to experience jealousy is another sign of imbalance. Anxiety, this is a popular one. I've been doing a lot of trainings now over these years, and anxiety is a big one. A lot of people experience anxiety, okay? But anxiety can also be a sign that your chakra is out of balance, okay? So how do you get into balance? How do you get into balance? Some ways to get into balance are creative expression, right? You expressing yourself creatively. So how can you do that? It doesn't mean necessarily if you're not a painter, if you don't consider yourself to be an artist, quote unquote, you don't paint, you don't write, you don't dance, other things, whatever you feel is your creative outlet. Maybe it's painting, maybe it's cooking, maybe it's rearranging your house, maybe you're into feng shui, maybe you're into other things. So you express when you're in the zone, when you're doing whatever it is that you feel that you're here to do. When you're in the zone, then all of a sudden time disappears, right? And that's when you know you're fully present with what you're doing, because you have no sense of time and awareness of time. So you're expressing yourself creatively. That's a beautiful way, okay? So of course you could do things like dance and painting and art and etc. But that's not the only way. Okay, because when you do that, you feel like you're coming alive. You feel more creative and you feel more alive, and you start to have a desire to do more of that, and you feel driven and connected with your, what we call in yoga, your dharma, your purpose. What is your goal? Why you're here? Okay, self-assurance is another sign of balance, right? You're very assertive. You're sure of yourself. You're confident. This is another good sign that you're in balance. Okay. So also a good thing to work on developing balance for this chakra is you have desire and appreciation. You appreciate what you have in your life. So sometimes when my students are in Shavasana, I'll tell them just that. Focus on what you have. Focus on what you're grateful for, right? Be grateful. Fill your heart with love and gratitude for all of your friends, your blessings, etc. So this is another good sign. Appreciation is a higher form of second chakra consciousness. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, learn to take delight in what is available. So again, being present to what you have. When you're able to sustain consciousness at the second chakra level, you learn to live by the laws of magnetism. You follow energy. You are secure in knowing that life will always be there. It is never a vacuum. Okay, so again, coming back to this law of attraction, you magnetizing what it is that you want in your life. Okay, so here's a little example that he gives. I think is a great example for you to really be present, is to give yourself a bubble bath. Right, so go home, take a bubble bath. When was the last time you took a bubble bath? Put yourself in that experience. Music, if you like, a little aromatherapy. Lights are off, candles. Just really immerse yourself and really feel that moment. It's a really nice way to be fully present. And you're getting a little bit of an external influence as far as candles and music, but for the most part, there's nothing else there. It's just you and the water, and this is really nice. But I'll give you another assignment. 5 things that you used to do that you haven't done in a long time. Okay, so write those out. 5 things that you used to do that you haven't done in a long time. So for example, going to the beach at night, right? That's something that I love to do, and I don't do it as often as I would like. So going to the beach at night is a beautiful thing. It's a whole different experience at nighttime versus during the daytime. Or maybe going hiking if that's something that you're into. Maybe going horseback riding or something. But something that you haven't done in a long time that used to bring you so much happiness and so much pleasure in your life that you've kind of neglected and forgotten. So list those 5 things. And your goal is in the next 3 to 6 months to achieve those 5 things. It could be done sooner. You could maybe do it, in the course of a few weeks. But try to do those 5 things within the next 3 to 6 months, okay? That's all for your second chakra. Moving on to third chakra. The third chakra, the purpose is the drive for power. The drive for power. This chakra, the color is yellow, and the location is the solar plexus. So right below the rib cage, right above the belly button. Most people refer to this as their core, as their center. Okay, in yoga we talk about your bandhas, your uddiyana bandha, right over here. You're engaging that energy and drawing it up. Right, in the martial arts, it's a very powerful one. When you exhale and you strike there, it gets very strong. You don't feel anything. Okay, so when someone's gonna hit you and exhale, you quickly exhale, and then your stomach becomes like rock hard. Okay, so that's a very powerful chakra. But this is where your power comes from. Okay, your power, we refer to it as core or your center. So this one's about being self-assertive. This is about you defining your boundaries, saying yes when you mean yes and saying no when you mean no. This is one that many people, particularly I've noticed in the yoga teacher training, have a little bit of the work to do here because they don't know how to put their foot down. They don't know how to speak up for themselves. They don't know how to define the boundaries. They kind of working on, they're a little bit more wishy-washy. So want to be a little bit more firm and strong, okay? So this is what this chakra is about. With this one, you start to have discernments, right? You start to have discernment. This discernment brings into the intellect, which in turn helps guide you and guides the will to those issues that it will engage in and which it will avoid. Okay, so you're really clear on what you will do and what you won't do. Your capacity to choose is an important function of the third chakra. So being decisive, if you find that you're an indecisive person, you have trouble making decisions, then that may be a sign that your third chakra is a little bit off and needs to be more developed, being decisive, okay? This is where your willpower comes from. Okay, in yoga we call it tapas, or as I refer to with my teacher, Sri Dharma Mitra, angry determination. Okay, this is also of third chakra. You're so determined, like, oh, I'm gonna get this pose. Oh, I'm gonna open my business. Oh, I'm gonna ace this exam. I'm gonna make a certain goal. I'm become healthy. Whatever it is for you, this is all coming from willpower, all coming from your third chakra. So here's an interesting one. If you're not in balance, if you're unbalanced with this one, you can either have an overuse or an underuse of willpower. It can go either way. So you can become an adrenaline junkie, right? Always chasing the highs, right? You get excited on a rush. You're chasing the rush. If you identify yourself as a stressor or a type A personality or an overachiever, sometimes you get hooked and addicted to the rush and the excitement of deadlines or the stress of trying to achieve a goal and driving yourself crazy and driving people around you crazy, right? That's also a sign of an imbalance, because you shouldn't live on the rush of it. You should just enjoy the process as it is, but not on the craziness and chaos that comes up as a result of this energy. Okay, so with this chakra also, you experience a justifiable anger. You feel like you have the right to be angry because of a particular situation. I have the right to be angry at this race of people because this happened to me many, many years ago. So I'm just gonna be really mad at this race. And we're seeing that a lot in this culture right now, right? Everyone is groups and protests and riots and this and marches. It's wonderful people coming together, but when it goes the wrong way, one person smashes a window, one person throws something at the cops, and next thing you know, all hell breaks loose, and now we got some serious problems. That's a danger with this chakra. We feel that we have the right to be angry, and anger, what does it do? It creates violence. That's why in the teachings of the Kabbalah, they say you should eliminate anger from your life. That's the one emotion you should try your best to eliminate, because that emotion leads to violence. That emotion leads to murder, right? People getting so angry, they black out. They're like, oh my God, I don't know what happened. Next thing you know, I was there and they got me angry, and next thing I'm just pounding on this person. Right? Not a good thing. Okay, so you want to make sure that you try your best to eliminate anger from your life. It's different when we talk about angry determination. That's different. That's more of a drive, a focus and intention. Anger itself, the emotion, is very, very dangerous. Okay, moving on. So here with underexpression, underuse of this particular chakra, you have trouble saying no. You have trouble saying no, which basically you kind of invite people to take advantage of you. Okay, this is what I mean by yogis have a problem with this particular one right here. You take on the role of being a martyr, and you don't know how to say no. People just walk all over you, so to speak. You describe yourself as a doormat. Okay, it's all because of this chakra. You take on the role of a martyr. One of my mentors had this great quote. She said, "Put down the wood. Put down the cross. We need the wood." Okay, so people take on the martyr. I want to be like Jesus. I want to save the world. I want to do for everything, but they're not taking care of themselves. And we need the wood. We need to go build a fire. We need to build a ladder. We need to build a bridge, right? So give up the wood. Stop trying to bear the cross on yourself, and go out there and try to save the world all by yourself. Let's do it together as a team. Why do people experience this? Because they want to be a good person. They want to be liked. So that's why they have trouble with this particular chakra in putting their foot down and people taking advantage of them. So here is a brilliant description of how do you know if you're doing things for one or two reasons. So here he says, this type of serving the demands of others is not true service. Okay, so this is the difference between being of service and being a servant. Okay, so this type of serving the demands of others is not true service. It is more like being a servant. Being of service and being a servant may be related, but they are miles apart in how they feel. When you're being of service, helping others feels good. Okay, feels good. When you're being a servant, the service is expected and demanded of you, and the activity becomes demeaning. Though this line of distinction between being of service and being a servant is exactly the place that the third chakra perspective of defining boundaries can do some good. Okay, so hopefully that brings some clarity to you. So if you're being of service, right, you want to do good. Part of the training is doing karma yoga, going out in the world, giving out. Recently we had one of our trainees went to the beach and gave out food to homeless people, right? That's a beautiful thing. That's being of service. Being a servant is someone demanding, a boss demanding you stay late when you don't want to stay late because you had to go do something or something like that, where someone's really abusing you, when imposing their power on you. That's being a servant. So I want to make sure that you clearly understand the differences. All right, so here's a good way for you to start practicing balance. So the ideal is to assert yourself when the situation requires, and to have the inner strength to be passive when appropriate. So knowing when to speak up, knowing when to keep your mouth shut. Because as we said, the first person who overuses their chakra, they're very expressive, they say what they want, they're abusing power, they need to tone it down a little bit. The people who are a little bit quiet all the time and let people walk all over them, they need to step it up a little bit. So understanding when to do the other, when to do what you need to do. This balance gives you flexibility, and you enlist cooperation rather than competition. To experience more peace in your life, give up the need to be right. One of my favorite quotes, right? We have those people who are very righteous. They always got something to say. They always got to, give you advice. They always got to, wave the flag of whatever it is, veganism or whatever the flag is, right? But you want to make sure that you're not coming from a place of ego, coming from a place of wanting to be right. You're just coming from a place of sharing the information if people are open to it. And you don't want to be a walking fight, where everything you say is very confrontational, right? It's very controversial, where you're just engaging in fights and arguments with people all the time, okay? So here's a really nice 2 questions you should ask yourself when you're in a situation where you feel, how do I react? Number 1 is, are you really threatened? Meaning, is your survival or your security really at stake, right? Is this really a threatening situation? Is your life in danger or your safety in danger? And number 2 is, do you really care about the outcome? Meaning, if you win the battle, does it really matter to you, right? Because if you lose the relationship or the friendship or the job because you won the battle, because you express yourself, is that worth it? That may not be worth it, okay? Here's a great, another distinction. A natural refinement occurs, and you are aware of intent as the energy of the 3rd chakra. Intentions are everything. So I'm a big believer in the power of intention. The power of intention is how I've done every major thing in my life, and I would probably say how all of us were born, right? This pure desire and intention to be born. But it's how I opened the yoga school. It's how I created this teacher training. It's how I directed and produced films. It's how I directed and produced TV commercials. It's how I bought my first property. Everything was clearly intention. Intention for me is not just a thought. I know we say in the beginning of class, set your intention on whatever your class is. But for me, intention is a feeling. It's an emotion. It's a way of living, right? So when I become very clear and intentional on something, things happen. I make it happen, but then the universe provides opportunities. All of a sudden, someone goes, hey, you said this, and here's an opportunity for you. Or, hey, I know somebody who could help you with that. And that happens all the time. But I got to be really, really clear on my intention. And then those things start to happen. So I love that quote there. Intention is everything. I strongly, strongly believe that. So when you draw on the power of your 3rd chakra, when you need to be decisive, like I said before, if you find yourself being indecisive, then you need to tap into your 3rd chakra. So what does he suggest you do? Breathe. Bring your awareness to that chakra. So that's why closing your eyes and just bringing your awareness there and focusing on the breath and connecting to your center. That's why plank pose and chaturanga and all these poses that we don't love, but they really work on core strengthening, or boat pose, or even doing inversions, piking into headstand. All these things work on strengthening your bandhas, particularly your Uddiyana bandha, but your core, your center becomes stronger, and then you can exert your power, okay? So that's 3rd chakra. All right, so the 4th chakra, this is the most common one. Most people could relate to this one. The quest is for love. The purpose is for love. It's the heart chakra. Okay, the heart chakra. The quest is for love. The color is green, and the sound, the seed sound is yam, Y-A-M, yam, okay? So this is an obvious one. But this one, not only is it about love, but also about faith. So remember in day 1 of the training, we talked about you can't have faith and fear living in the same heart. One is going to win out over the other one. So faith. So it takes faith because the modern view of life is one of struggle. And it's insistent that you had better have a good plan to defend and protect and provide for yourself. This comes from a fear-based mentality, a fear of scarcity, okay? So we talked about also on day 1, fear is, we have different acronyms, right? False evidence appearing real, or forget everything and run. You could say the other bad word. Or the better one that we like is face everything and rise, right? So facing your fears. Doesn't mean you're not scared, right? You still might have that fear. And again, fear is not a bad thing. Fear keeps us alive. Fear, cross the street and someone eats the red light, almost hits you, you jump back to the curb without thinking about it. This fear, the innate self-survival mechanism keeps you alive. But living in a state of fear, always worrying, always, doubting, always having, this doom gloom mentality, that's not a good way to live. Okay, so we want to have more of a courageous attitude. There's a great quote that I share that says, "A coward dies 1,000 deaths. A coward dies 1,000 deaths. A hero dies once. When we say it, what we mean by that is that when you're living in a state of worry or fear, then you're always seeing things going wrong, right? Oh, what if this doesn't happen? Oh, what if that? Oh, what if that? What if, right? You can live in all this fear and you're seeing everything going wrong. What does it mean by you're dying? You're having these small little deaths all the time. Where a hero dies once. A hero goes head on, and when it happens, it happens. But they're moving forward with courage. Courage is moving forward in spite of fear. So a soldier on a battlefield, or we talked about the Bhagavad Gita, right? Arjuna's on the battlefield, and he's scared, but Krishna is telling him, this is your dharma. This is what you've been trained to do. Go forth and fight. So he has to go forth and do it. So that's moving forward. Still, you might be fearful, but you still move forward. That's true courage, okay? So I believe that with the heart chakra, it's the bridge between the lower three and the upper three, right? It's right in the center. It's the bridge that starts to transcend from the selfish needs, now going into more of the serving needs. I'm going to talk about that more in depth here. So also, you experience magnetic attraction. You also attract things into your life through the heart chakra. What's beautiful about this chakra is that the more that you give is the more that you receive, right? So if you want to have more love in your life, then be more loving, give love, right? And then the universe will have no other choice. It's called the law of reciprocity. The law of reciprocation will then give you that which you're giving in return. It's a very, very powerful law that most people don't talk about too much. But you want to give, and then you're going to receive, okay? Love is a natural outpouring of the heart, like a mother's love for her child. This is a love that is absolutely selfless. There is no ulterior motive other than love itself. And I can say, as becoming a dad recently, my son, when he was born, that moment, like just being so full of love, like just being so like, it sounds cliche. We grown up hearing that, oh, your parents love you unconditionally, and then when you become a parent, you're going to see how it is. And some people who have pets kind of feel that way. But when you have your first child, life changes. Like, it really puts things into perspective. And the love that you feel is so huge, so amazing. So it's truly a very powerful part of who we are. So the shift from the third chakra perspective to the fourth chakra is huge, since it represents an entire paradigm shift. Okay? So again, we're shifting from the lower. So you think about the lower ones. They're all about selfish needs and desires, wants, power. The fourth chakra, the heart chakra, now goes into loving other people, right? Loving others, loving places, people. You're going outside of yourself, not coming from a selfish place. So there's a common story that two people fall in love. Before they were in love, both had cultivated a connection to the source of their inspiration. Okay, meaning before you fall in love with somebody, you go to your yoga class regularly, you go to kirtans, you go to yoga workshops, you go to retreats. And then you get into a relationship with somebody, okay? So it says here, with the growing love, when they're in the relationship, they spend more and more time drawing from each other's energy and less time connecting with their source, okay? And instead of being fully animated by life in and of itself and then sharing that with their partner, they depend on each other as a source of their vitality. And they become a subtle drain to each other, constantly drawing from the other without replenishing the source. That's very important for people who are in relationships. Right? You're in love with a person. Next thing you know, you're not doing your yoga practice. You're not spending time with your family. You're not spending time with your friends. You're spending time with this person. And then hopefully, the last, but let's say you break up with that person, and all of a sudden you're lost. You don't know what to do because you haven't been connecting to your source of inspiration. You haven't been doing the things that you love. Okay, so it's very important to keep doing the things that you love, and then you bring that love, excitement, and energy into your relationship. That's how you keep the energy alive. Okay, moving on. So now, as far as imbalances, right, being unbalanced, sentimentality, also known as a bleeding heart. You're doing things for other people, but you're doing it to be accepted. Okay, you're just doing it to kind of win them over. You're doing it because you want them to like you. This is a sign of being unbalanced. Over-attachment, this is a very common one also in relationships. You become so attached to somebody, you become codependent on them, where you feel like, again, you can't function without them, okay? So you may say, I love you, but what you really mean is, I need you. Okay, you have this almost a sense of desperation, right? And people feel that, and it for most part, people may not be attracted to that. So you don't want to come from a place of being so needy and so clingy and over-attached and having this codependency on anybody, okay? In yoga, one of the things that we teach that's so important is not being attached, right? It's being completely unattached, being completely present on yourself, on the divine, on God, providing for yourself, right? Having that connection, not being dependent on anybody else. All right, moving on. So there are many different levels of love. There's personal love, there's compassion, there's universal love. There's many different degrees on it, which if you get this book, you'll get to know it. But here's a really nice way to be in this space of love, is to count your blessings. Count your blessings and enter into thankfulness. This always stirs the heart. Once you're centered and feel the wellspring of warmth, bring your friend's image or someone you love into mind, and you'll feel this love for this person. You'll feel that you love that you have. Okay. So Reverend Michael Beckwith said one thing that I thought was brilliant. The world's shortest prayer. The world's shortest prayer is 2 words, and those words are thank you. It's a very powerful way to pray. When I was younger, being raised Catholic, my prayer was, Dear God, please let me do good on this test tomorrow, and I promise I'll go to church. Right? It's like kind of this bartering and negotiating with God. Like, I'll do this if you do that for me, right? And that's the way I thought, prayer was. But I like this prayer better is thank you, right? So now my prayer is completely different. Now my prayer is thank you for my life. Thank you for my son. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my loved ones. Thank you for the fact that I'm alive. Thank you for my dreams. Thank you for my goals, right? Just thinking. It's a beautiful place to come from, okay? Being grateful and having appreciation, okay? That's the 4th chakra. Moving into the 5th chakra. So the 5th chakra, this one is about the voice of creative expression. The voice of creative expression, the key word being expression. The 5th chakra. The color is blue and the location is the throat. Okay, the sound for this one is hum, H-A-M, hum. So Reverend Michael also has this great quote. He says that it's really about expression, because if you don't express, if you keep suppressing something, if you keep holding it down, suppression leads to depression, so it's about expression. Truly, truly expressing yourself. That's what this chakra is about. So the first step of owning your authentic nature can be a tumultuous ride, okay, until you learn how to detach from other people's views. Awakening to this dimension begins with self-acceptance of your uniqueness, right? So you learn to express yourself. So self-expression of who you truly are, not necessarily just your voice, but who are you? So if you want to have tattoos, then you have tattoos. If you want to dye your hair purple, then you have purple hair. Right? You truly embrace who you are and you're totally comfortable with it, no problem. The core need of this throat chakra is to find your voice and you to speak your truth. This is not the physical voice, but the place from within which where you speak. To find your authentic voice, be willing to question everything you previously believed. That is one of my favorite quotes, right? Because to truly know yourself, to truly understand yourself, you have to start to really think about, well, what do I believe about myself? And maybe some of those beliefs aren't true, right? So I always say that, when we were younger, we were taught, who is the boogeyman in the closet or a monster under the bed, and now you have this fear, then you wake up and you realize, okay, there's no boogeyman or no monster, but we're still scared of the dark. We still sleep with the lights on, right? We still have this fear connected to a childhood. That's when you might connect and start to question your beliefs, okay? There's a quickening that happens when you experience this chakra, right? At first, especially when you start teaching, you might be a little bit nervous, you might stutter a little bit, you might have these nervous habits, but then the more comfortable you become, the more comfortable you become becoming an instructor, a teacher, then all of a sudden those things disappear. Sometimes I still get a little bit nervous depending on the size of the group or depending on the situation, but for the most part, because I've done this so much for so many years now, I'm mostly confident, I would like to think, okay? So moving on to there's a great discussion here. He talks about when this particular author, David Pond, when he speaks at seminars, sometimes he'll ask the audience, hey, anyone has a question? And no one raises their hands. He's okay, everyone, thank you, have a good night. And he goes to leave the stage, and everyone swarms him with questions. And he says, it would serve the audience, it would serve everybody if the people raise their hands publicly, because then when he engages with that person, everybody gets to hear it, as opposed to not just this one person doing it. And that's why if you watch Tony Robbins and with his interventions at his seminars, right, he'll call upon one person and he'll deal with that person for 2 hours, 3 hours straight, and we're all there glued to our seats, because we know that in learning about this individual and how they have to overcome their problems in life or challenges in life, we're all learning about our lives, and we're all learning about our own beliefs. That's really, really powerful. So this idea of publicly sharing is really helpful to the whole community. Okay, so some signs of being unbalanced is you oppose other people's views just because, right? If people say, oh, let's go to this restaurant, I want to go to that restaurant, right? You're just completely being difficult, right? That's a sign of an imbalance. Those people who always want to do what the group, the other thing, right? They want to do the opposite of what everybody else wants to do. Another example I share here is comics, right? If you think of like, small time, if you've ever been to like small comedy clubs and you see like an unknown comic take the stage and they're on stage, usually they do one or two things. Either they're attacking the audience, making fun of like different people in the audience, why most people don't want to sit in the front row of a comedy club. Or they go up there and they just kind of just attack themselves and just have like this therapy session on stage, right? And there's nothing attractive about either of those two scenarios. But if you look at the comics who are most successful, whether it be a Jerry Seinfeld, a George Carlin, Ellen DeGeneres, or any of your favorite comedians, the ones who are huge, what they do is they poke fun at what we do as human beings, what we all, the common things that we all do. And I think that's what makes them so much more bigger, is because they're not attacking a particular race or gender or class. They're saying, hey, look at the silly things we as human beings do, and that's how they can relate to more people. And I believe that's what makes them more successful. So it's about expression. Another sign of being unbalanced with this one is imbalances are inappropriate creativity, known as deception, which is basically lies, right? So deceiving, lying, this is also an imbalance with the throat chakra. Okay. Now, if you're a writer or a storyteller, then that's fine. But if you're just making up stories about things that aren't true, then there's an imbalance here as well. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're being truthful and honest. And you start to learn how to assert yourself, and you start to overcome things, for example, like stage fright or writer's block. That might be a sign of an imbalance, right? People who are fearful to stand in front of and teach, or to sing, or to speak publicly, or if you have an idea and you're just hitting a block and you're not able to, it's showing that you're not in the flow. That there's an imbalance going on. So you want to try to deal with that. Okay. All right. Next way to practice balancing is just to practice speaking your truth, just speaking up for yourselves, expressing your voice, right? And again, identifying who you are at your core and expressing that place and being truly, truly authentic with yourself. Moving beyond being defensive, right? If you're always getting into situations or arguments with people, that might be a sign of being about. So you're getting beyond being defensive. Instead, get out of the way and let the energy flow through you, right? When you step aside and you don't let your ego interfere and you're just totally present and in the zone, then things start to flow through you. Then you get inspiration. Recently I was on a trip and I had this idea for 10 years. And because I was in this particular environment in Puerto Rico, and I was at this restaurant, and this restaurant just gave me such inspiration that I just felt, I got the inspiration that 10 years ago I had, and I lost it. Okay, but being back in that space of inspiration, of completely being connected to your source is really amazing. Okay. All right, moving on to the sixth chakra. The sixth chakra is for transcendence. The purpose is transcendence. This is the color, we say in the teacher training violet. Some people say indigo blue, but for the sake of the training, we say violet. The location is the third eye, most commonly referred to third eye, or the space between the eyes. The sound is Om. Om. Okay. This is about transcendence. Okay. This leads to all forms of escapism. You have to be mindful. That's the low road. The low road is escapism. The high road is meditation, visualization, etc. So this sixth chakra experience is as images or visions or things like that. So as you get into higher forms of meditation, you might start to get visions. You might start to see things. You might find that your third eye becomes more open, so to speak. It might be colors, it might be imagery, it might be some type of premonition, intuitions. Less than high road for this chakra is watching TV. Okay, so what's been common in our society, I've done it myself, binge watching your favorite show. Watching every single episode for 4 hours, 5 hours, staying home all day. I've done it, I won't lie. I've done it with Breaking Bad. I've done it with a couple other shows. Orange is the New Black. Favorite shows. But doing that all the time, not good. Okay, every once in a while is okay. But that form of escapism where you kind of lose all track of time, right? You don't know, you forget, oh my God, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that. I just totally got lost in the show. That's the not so healthy way of doing this. What's so fascinating about that is that people will sit and watch their favorite show for 5 hours, 6 hours a day, a weekend, but they can't meditate for 10 minutes. They meditate for 10 minutes, like, oh my God, my back hurts. Oh, I'm getting hungry. Oh, they can't sit still for 10 minutes, but yet we can watch our show. So that's what we're talking about. It's not the most healthiest way to do this. A much more positive way is through meditation, through visualization. Vision boards have become very popular in our society in the last couple of years. Again, another form of low level of this is losing oneself in drugs, alcohol, deception, lying, illusions, things like that, right? Completely losing yourself into these things that kind of check you out, so to speak. You have to have a strong spiritual will the more you develop your sixth chakra. Because the more in tune you become, then you might start to see things. You might start to have messages. You might start to have really powerful meditations, or start to have really odd dreams. Right? It's all coming from the sixth chakra. To reflect upon your natural tendencies, again, be the observer, right? Be the witness, right? Being the witness of your breath, being the witness of whatever patterns or beliefs that you have, being the witness of your thoughts, right? Of your habits, right? Things that you do. Okay, so in order to do that, you have to be present and become the witness and become the observer. Also notice any depletion or enhancement of your energy when you're dealing with certain people or certain situations, right? Do you feel uplifted, or do you feel a little bit like drained? Okay, so notice that when you're dealing with people. Directed imagery or creative visualization is another way also to practice working on your sixth chakra. Trusting your intuition. Your intuition starts to sharpen. You become really, really sharp, right? It's that little voice, so to speak, or maybe for you it's a feeling, or maybe for you it's a quick little vision of knowing what to do or what not to do. But you start to listen to that little voice, and then it becomes your guide, your internal GPS, so to speak. You become skilled at seeing and interpreting omens, right? Paying attention to the signs. You start to receive messages from a larger life force. You become really, really good at interpreting signs, what people will call omens. Okay, so I get signs all the time, but I keep my eyes open. I keep my ears open. So sometimes I'm debating on something, and the next thing you know, I get the inspiration and motivation for something, and that is a good way for me to remind me that I'm on the right path, that I'm heading in the right direction. Okay. Again, be mindful of your religious or your spiritual practices, because now we're getting into more higher consciousness. You want to make sure that you have that energy is clear. From the sixth center of the consciousness, from the sixth chakra, you rise above polarity and you see life through a larger lens that encompasses all views. Right? You start to see the greater. You start to understand the universal energy. You start to see we're all one. There's a oneness that you start to tap into when you get into this chakra. Okay. Imbalances. Getting lost in non-reality. You have an imagination that runs wild. You're engulfed by fear. All you do is worry and have fear, or we may refer to as a worry wart, where you become a worry wart. Fear is meant to be a standby alarm. It's not meant to be a state of consciousness. Fear keeps you alive, right? But you shouldn't live in a state of fear all the time. The key is to assess the quality of your energy in the moment when you're in a situation. Do you feel inspired and filled with subtle energy, or do you feel drained by fear? Do you feel a contraction and tightening in your energy field, or an expansive and opening? The measure of balance is found within you. Read your own energy. Okay? Here's a great quote. The root of all suffering is a separation from the divine. The root of all suffering is a separation from the divine. Okay, sometimes people experience depression. They don't know what their purpose is. Why am I here? Right? Is it just to go to work and pay the bills? Is that why I'm here? And you have to have your connection to the divine and really know what your dharma is. What is your purpose? Okay. Drugs, etc., things like that. You know, any type of obsessive fantasizing are all signs of imbalances. So be mindful if you kind of get lost in those types of behaviors and actions. You start to, when you're in line, you're focusing with your alignment, and you're in tune with your intuition, your premonitions. You become a visionary, right? You start to see things. You start to have visions and inspirations. You become really, really clear on what your goal is. Okay, so to balance it, simply visualization, meditation, prayer, any type of dream boards or things like that. These are all ways to work on balancing your sixth chakra. Okay, last one. Seventh chakra. The seventh chakra is about surrendering to spirituality, surrendering to the divine. Okay, one of the lessons in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna teaches Arjuna is surrender to me. Come to me and you'll know the way. That's one of the many lessons in the Bhagavad Gita. So complete surrender, right? Surrendering to God, surrendering to the divine, the universe, whatever you believe. The color is white. The crown of the head is the location. Color is white or violet. And again, there's no sound, just being in silence, paying attention. Listen, there's a great quote that says, prayer is me talking to God, meditation is me listening. Okay, so you just listen in silence. Okay, absolute surrender to the divine for guidance. is one of the goals. Imbalances, this is a very dangerous place to have imbalances because it may show up in a separate reality. You can't really function in life because you're so out there. So think of like someone who's just a genius or a brilliant person, and they're just so out there that they can't really deal with the average everyday people because their thinking is on a whole nother level. So that could be a form of an imbalance unless you're in a community of people who are just like that. But you want to be mindful to try to be grounded. There's a great quote that says, "Let go and let God," or "let Goddess," he puts in parentheses, right? Just complete surrender, right? People who are type A personalities, people who are stressors, who are overachievers, are also known as being controlling, right? They're very controlling. So this chakra is about surrender. You have to have faith that you're guided by a higher consciousness, and you don't have to do all the work. You have to surrender and let God do the work, or the universe do the work. Okay, this is a higher form of this level. Okay, surrender should not be confused with sacrifice. Surrender should not be confused with sacrifice. Sacrifice implies letting go of something that you value. But what is actually required is to trust that as you surrender your life to the divine, all that you value will come into alignment as well. Okay, that's a wonderful quote there. Right? You surrender and know that everything will be provided for you, having complete faith that you'll be taken care of. You also start to know that we're all one, right? The higher level, you understand that we're all one, that we're not separate. You start to see that we're all human beings, but not just human beings, but us on this planet, that all sentient beings are important. That's why one of the teachings of yoga is ahimsa. Don't kill little bugs. Don't kill other animals just because we think that we're the higher species. We see that we're all in this together. We're all here for a purpose. Okay, that's also part of it. Imbalances with this one are aligning with false gurus or inappropriate teachings. Okay, so to explain that simply, cults. You think of people who fall into cults, right? They believe that, this person can talk to God, this person can talk to the divine. I have to study with that person, I have to learn from that person. No, a true guru teaches you how to do that for yourself, and then the guru sends you off on your way. Okay, most people who study with a guru, that's always the saddest day when the guru is like, okay, bye-bye, go off into the world, you don't have to stay here anymore. And the person's like, no, but I love it here. So that's a true guru. The ones who are like, follow me, let's all drink the Kool-Aid together. You're never gonna leave. Give me all your money. Give me all your valuables. That's not the teachings. Okay, you wanna eventually leave. That's one of the imbalances. Okay, there should be no intermediaries. There should be you and connected to the divine directly. Here's a great quote: "Beyond fear is freedom. Beyond fear is freedom." So as long as you get past the fear, you'll start to experience this freedom. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I'll share with you one beautiful story. He talks about that when David Pond, for example, initially owned a restaurant, and he was also doing astrology and readings for people, so some of his clients would come to his restaurant. But he wasn't happy at the restaurant, so he wanted to eventually leave that world and go full-time into doing this type of work. And he started to notice that he had the same issue coming up with his clients, right? They wanted to do A, but they were doing B. So by the second or third person coming to him, he realized, that's my problem too, right? I own this restaurant, but I don't want this restaurant. I want to go into doing this work. So eventually he spoke to his partner bought him out, and he went full-time in this, and he's had more success and more happiness doing this work, okay? So my lesson to you is to balance your chakras and to find your purpose and to find your dharma. Namaste.